I don't know if I am being too dramatic, but plastics, as you said, is not a natural material. It is made by man, right? So
Yes.
it could be a threat to life on Earth. Moikka, welcome to the Papo de Professor podcast. This podcast has objective the dissemination of new ideas, theories, and good practice in education. I am the teacher Damione, and today we have here a very important guest. So we are very, very pleased to receive here Dr. Rudy Folkersman. Rudy is professor of Stenden University of Applied Sciences in Netherlands, and he are here, and we would like to welcome to our podcast, Rudy.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be in your podcast.
Great. Rudy is in Brazil right now, but we are very, very far, right?
Yes, we are.
Rudy is in Piauí, right?
Yes, PoE, Teresina.
Teresina, Piauí. So, as you used to listen the Papo de Professor podcast, right now I'm in São Paulo, but I expect to have the opportunity to meet Dr. Rude live. Well, Rude, to start our conversation, I would like to ask you if you could talk a little bit about your background in education.
Yes, of course. I studied chemistry at the University of Groningen. That's in the northern part of the Netherlands. My main subject was Polymeros. And after my master degree in Groningen, I went to University of Eindhoven. That's in the south of the Netherlands. And there I did my PhD in colloid chemistry. And then I worked for a few years at a Dutch Polymer Institute. And then in 2000, I started my career at Stenden University of Technology, Stenden University, and now I'm a professor in sustainable plastics and circular plastics.
Ah, great. So, first of all, I'd like to apologize for my lack of knowledge in your field of research. But I believe, of course, this field is extremely important and linked to our daily lives. And to make everything more clear, to make everything clear, could you explain a very basic questions? I'd like to know, actually, what is the difference or the relationship between plastics and polymers? When we are talking about polymers or polymeros, what we are talking about?
Well, sometimes the words mean the same and sometimes it's different. But when you're talking about plastics, we actually mean artificial products. Materials that do not exist in nature, but are made by humans. And polymers is a name which actually means, poly means many, and mers means parts, so many parts. So when you're talking about polymers, that are molecules which are very large. And plastics is an example of a polymer, but the DNA from animals or humans is also a polymer. And a lot of natural proteins are also polymers, and paint is also a polymer. So polymer is a name for substances, materials which exist of large molecules, long, large molecules like a chain. And plastics is, yes, what we use in our daily life, artificial materials that are made by humans and do not exist in nature.
Oh, well, it's a very, very interesting point, because I don't know if I am being too dramatic, but plastics, as you said, is not a natural material. It is made by man, right? So
yes.
It could be a threat to life on Earth.
Maybe in the end. First of all, plastic is a wonderful material because it brought us very many advantages in life. It's cheap. You can make everything out of it. It's light. So when you build a car or a plane, you use a lot of plastics to make it more light, and you save energy by that. So plastics in general is a very good material. But there are some challenges because plastics are made out of oil. And in 100 years or 200 years, there will be no more oil. So we have to think about other ways of making plastics. For instance, out of sugarcane or corn or starch or other natural resources. And the other problem is that everybody knows about the plastic soup. Plastics are very sustainable. That means when they are in the environment, they can be there for 10, 50 or 100 years. They are not being degradable by bacteria or whatever. So they remain in the environment or in the sea, and that's a problem. And so we have to collect the plastic and not throw it away in the environment and recycle it. So we have to go to what we call a circular economy. And there is a model of a lady called Ellen MacArthur, and she said circular economy exists of two circles, a biological circle and a technical circle. And when we're talking about plastics, the technical circle is to recycle as much as possible the plastics that we use. And the biological cycle is when we use biopolymers. So plastics made out of natural resources, not oil. And some of these materials are also biodegradable. So when you're talking about is it a threat for humans? No. If we start to work about it to recycle more and for the long term use bio-based materials, then we can solve the problems about plastic.
It would be good to replace the plastic with another type of polymers. Is it possible?
Yes, like I told you, you can make polymers out of sugarcane or starch or sugar beets or whatever.
Let me ask you in another way, because I see plastics everywhere, you know. So
yes.
So if we change the the oil for another substance like sugar cane, it still will be plastic, or it become a new material?
New material with the same properties of plastics, I think it will be difficult because there's also an economic part, and how many resources do you have to make new materials? When you use metal, it's much more heavy. When you use ceramics or wood, it's also a problem. So plastics, I think, are a good material, but we have to change our behavior with plastics. We have to reuse, recycle. Then we can use plastics for centuries. So not a linear economy, but we must go to a circular economy. And then we can use plastics because plastics have a lot of advantages and that other materials do not have.
Okay, so it means the plastic is not a villain to our world, right?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, and about this subject, it is already being debated enough in our schools. What do you think about that? We are talking enough with our students about it.
It starts to come. I don't know the situation exactly in Brazil, but in Holanda we are working on educational programs in this field, both about recycling of plastics, but also making new plastics out of natural resources. And one of the reasons I am in Brazil is to start cooperation with Brazilian institutes, Brazilian universities, to share our knowledge, because Brazil has a lot of natural resources, talking about all kinds of fibers, sugarcane, but also natural pigments we can use in plastics. So I started, for instance, a cooperation with UFPE in Teresina, and we are starting a project which is also subsidized by the Brazilian government. We exchange students and teachers to share our knowledge in this field. So it's starting to come, because everyone realizes that we must do something, and education is very important for the new generation to obtain our goals in future. Yeah,
I think so. And is this subject just for the biology or chemistry teachers?
I think it's multidisciplinary. It's chemistry, it's biology, it's mechanical engineering, also economics, politics, communication is also important. Normal people do not understand the difference between all the kinds of plastics. So communication is also important. So I think it's a multidisciplinary subject.
And let me ask you. I think so. You have traveled the world, and you have seen a lot of different initiatives about that. I mean, a very interesting initiative. So, what initiatives have you seen that our subscribers in the Papo de Professor podcast needed to know to be inspired? Something we can try to do the same, or we need to do the same?
Well, for instance, the government in the Netherlands said that in 2050 we want to be 100% circular. When plastics are concerned, the situation is now that of the total amount of plastics in the Netherlands, 30% is being recycled. So our goal is in 2050 to be 100% circular.
100%?
Yes.
Wow.
A total circular economy. That's our goal. And with technology and education, that must be possible. So we do all kinds of projects with students, for instance. For instance, when you have plastic waste, how can we wash it? How can we sort it? Because when you have a mixture of plastics, the properties are going very bad. So we have to separate all the different plastics. What kind of technologies can we use? And we already made some progress with that. Also washing. When you have packaging for meat, it's dirty, fat. How can you clean those plastics for better recycling? Because when the recycling of plastic is improved, you can make better products out of it. And another initiative is plastic bags. Normally you use them only once. Why not use them more, collect them and use them more? Or, as in the Netherlands now, you have to pay for a plastic bag. And then people think, oh, I don't want to pay, I will take my own bag from my home. So there are many ways to tackle these problems. Politics, good communication to the society, because people don't know. Biopolymers, so it's not one solution. There are many things you can do to tackle these problems. You know,
I believe that you have heard about that, but I think so in 2015, here in Brazil, we had an attempt to do that. I mean, the supermarkets started to charge their customers for the plastic bags. But it was made by law, and it was very, very bad received by the population, because I guess that it cannot be made just by law. I think so. It have
no.
It have to be a mindset change, right?
Yes, you're absolutely right, and that's what I mean with good communication from universities, from television, radio, a podcast like this. People need to know, have more information about the problems with plastics and what normal people can do with these problems. So education, information, the coming year is very important.
Let me ask you a last question. Have you seen some interesting thinking in Brazil about this topic that you know that you guess that is very interesting to be known by Brazilians also?
Yes, we started cooperation with a group of Professor Tatiana Tavares in Teresina, and she is using natural fibers in combination with natural plastics to make new materials. And I think that's very nice, because these materials you can use in building, in furniture, to replace, for example, tropical wood.
Wow.
And I think that's very good. And we also start with these materials called biocomposite. And actually, on the 6th of August, I will give a presentation at the university about this subject. So, for instance, in the aeroplane business, they are also using composite materials, carbon fibers or aramide fibers, high-tech materials. But for many applications, you don't need these high-tech materials. You can also use biocomposite. So natural fiber